I used to take care of my grandson every single day, from his first steps to his first nightmares. I was the first person he called when he fell off his bike, the first to hear him say, "Grandma, you're magic," just because I always knew where his lost toy was hiding. It went on like that for 10 years, holding hands at the school gate, warm soup on cold nights, scraped knees, whispered promises before bed, and I never once complained. I never asked for anything, not even when she called last minute asking me to pick him up. Not even when she spent entire weekends away, traveling with her new boyfriend, leaving Miguel's backpack with me, and a rehearsed excuse. I thought that's what love was supposed to be. To care without expecting anything, to give without keeping score, to show up even when no one noticed. But everything changed the day I needed someone. It was a Tuesday. My body had been acting strangely for days, but I didn't want to worry anyone. It wasn't until I fainted right there in the hallway that I finally took it seriously. The diagnosis came quickly and coldly. Early-stage cancer, treatable, but exhausting. In the car after the appointment, I waited for a gesture, a touch, some comfort. But all she said was, "Mom, you're going to have to find a nurse. I just can't take care of you right now." Those words didn't come as a shock. They came as a confirmation that everything I had given had meant nothing. I turned to look out the window, trying to hide my tears. Outside, everything looked the same, but inside, something had shattered. She said it like she was talking about changing the bedsheets. Find yourself a nurse. Cold, simple, without hesitation. She didn't even look me in the eye. She was in a rush. Had a meeting, she said. She left the car idling in front of the hospital while I, still groggy from the anesthesia, climbed out with my folder of test results on my lap and the whole world spinning beneath my feet. That night, I slept alone for the first time in years. No Miguel laughing in the living room with the TV blaring. No tiny socks lost under the couch. No sound of the door being hurriedly locked as she picked him up, always late. Nothing. No message. No missed call. The silence came before the fever, and it was even crueler. In the days that followed, I heard, not from her but from a friend, that Miguel had been enrolled in a full-time school. She said, "It's time for him to have a more structured routine." A lie. It was just easier that way. Easier to erase me from the equation as if I were a problem to solve. Not the woman who had held that home together with her own two hands while she was finding herself. Me, the one who stayed up through nights of coughing fits. Me, the one who taught him to read, to swim, to love plants. Me, the one who threw all his birthday parties because she didn't know how to bake a cake. Now I was just another number, another expense, another inconvenience. And there, in that small room that smelled of rubbing alcohol and medicine, I finally understood. They didn't love me. They used me. On the first night without Miguel, I sat on the couch and stared at the pair of sneakers he had left by the door. Blue with red laces. He had left them there the week before and said, "Grandma, keep these for me. They're my lucky ones." And I kept them. Just like I kept his drawings, his notes, his laughter. Just like I kept all the little wounds she handed me every time she forgot that I was a mother before I ever became a babysitter. But that night, I realized, keeping wasn't enough anymore. I stayed there, motionless, one hand resting over my stomach, trying to figure out what hurt more. The illness. Or the disregard. That's when I understood something no one had ever told me. Silence doesn't protect. It hides, it delays, it numbs. and I had postponed my life for far too long. I stood up, slowly. Yes, my body still ached. But something inside me had already risen. I grabbed my old recipe notebook and closed it. I closed the pages that had been used without gratitude. I closed the chapter of unrecognized giving, and I opened something else. My folder with the house documents, the deed, the joint account, the savings account I had quietly kept for Miguel. I smiled, for the first time in weeks, not out of happiness, but out of clarity. I wasn't a nurse. I was the root of it all. And if they had pulled me out like some useless weed, then I would take the soil with me. The next morning, the sky was overcast, but inside me, the sun was shining, not the loud, burning summer sun that scorches and consumes. It was a winter sun, cold, clear, resolute, the light of someone who can finally see. I drank my bitter coffee, as I always had, but for the first time in years, I didn't wait for anyone to wake up and ask what they wanted on their toast. There was no one else at the table, and strangely enough, that's when I felt most whole. I picked up my phone, opened my banking app, unlinked my name from her account, closed the savings account I had opened the day Miguel was born, and I left just enough money for her to hire that nurse she talked about. Let her find one then. Because I was no longer the employee of love. Then I called my lawyer. I changed my will. Not out of revenge. Revenge is noisy, and what I wanted now was peace. But for the first time, I wrote my name not as a donor, but as the rightful owner of my own story. The house? It's going to a nonprofit that shelters women abandoned by their children. The car? I gave it to Mrs. Rita, my 70-something neighbor who's been raising her grandkids alone and never had a way to leave the house without begging for rides. She cried when I handed her the keys, and in those tears, I felt more gratitude than I had in 10 years of giving. That same afternoon, I took Miguel's drawings down from the wall. I didn't throw them away. I packed them carefully, along with the memory of a time when being a grandmother still meant affection, not convenience. And when she called, asking why the money hadn't gone through, I simply said, because from now on, I only invest in what helps me bloom. It's been weeks since I first heard the phrase, "Find yourself a nurse." And I did, but not to care for my body, to care for my soul. And her name was Freedom. I don't use an alarm clock anymore. Now my timekeeper is the sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of the coffee I brew just for myself, strong, black, just the way I've learned to be. I started walking every day at the little park around the corner. I bought a blue dress, the kind I would have never worn before because it wasn't fitting for a grandmother. I bought it anyway, and I wore it. I painted my nails red, not out of vanity, but because I deserve color, and when the physical pain returned, once again, it didn't scare me, because now I knew the greatest tumor had never been in my body. It had lived in the habit of making myself smaller, just to fit into the spaces others allowed me. This week, I set my table, but not with bibs and baby food, with wine, laughter, and people who truly see me. The guests, Mrs. Rita, my neighbor who smiles with her eyes, Lorena, the young woman from the bakery who always asks how I'm really doing, Elenice, who I met at the bank and who also raised her grandson alone, and me. Yes, I sent myself an invitation too. Because for so many years, I forgot to invite myself into my own life. The table was simple, but it held something that had Never existed at all the parties I once hosted. Space for me. And at the end of the night, when the lights were low and the glasses were empty, someone said, "You have such a beautiful light, you know." And I smiled, because now I know. It doesn't come from makeup. It comes from the relief of finally no longer carrying everyone on my back. As for Miguel, he'll grow, he'll learn. Maybe one day he'll understand. Maybe he won't. But that no longer belongs to me. I fulfilled my role. And now I write my name at the top of the page and sign it proudly with the pen I finally stole back from the hands of silence.